Well, hey folks, as you can see, I am up to my ears in Memoir 44 stuff. Yes, all of the stuff that you see on the table here is stuff that is available, I believe, right now for Memoir 44. I don't know why I said I would do this for you people. I know why. It's because I love you. That's gross. Now, the terrain pack is the first purchase I think you should make after buying the base sets. Maybe you want to buy 2 base sets, but the reason I say that is because, first of all, it gives you 88 more terrain tiles. 88 more terrain tiles, which will simply enrich your experience playing the game. Also gives you a bunch more markers, different things that you can... like minefield markers and metals and that type of thing. It also gives you obstacles, pontoons, roadblocks, and those kinds of things. It also provides some more special unit badges that will help you get through some of those obstacles, like engineers and those kinds of things. After you open the expansion terrain pack for Memoir 44, this is basically what you'll have in it. There are 88 tiles. These are the counters that I was telling you about right here. We're going to go over them, don't worry. And then here are some of the different obstacles and further enhancements of terrain that are there. And then, of course, you're also going to get the rule book, which comes with explanations for some of the new rules that you're going to have with some of these new tiles. And it also explains what some of these counters do as well, so that you can enhance your gameplay. Let's take a look at what each different kind of tile does. The first kind of tile that we have here is the Oasis tile. You get 3 of them, as you can see here. A unit that moves into an Oasis hex has to stop there and can't make any further movements that turn. Additionally, when a unit is battling into an Oasis hex, infantry and armor both reduce their number of battle dice rolled by 1. And then, of course, as normal, well, more often than not, artillery dice are not affected. A unit on an Oasis hex can ignore the first flag, so it's kind of like being in a hex that's protected by a sandbag. And then Oasis does block line of sight, and there are some scenarios that allow a unit that is in an Oasis hex to treat that hex as if it had been given the medics and mechanics ability, which means that they can actually start recovering pieces or models back into that unit if you roll the right dice. It comes with palm forests. Palm forests are basically treated just like regular forests. It's the only difference is the way they look. And that's mainly because of the North African theater and the Mediterranean theater and so forth and so on. Along those same lines, these towns and villages hexes are also included. But again, it's treated just like the regular towns and villages in the base game, but it's there to provide a little bit more of a aesthetic feel to the board. The next one are Watis. There is no movement restrictions through the open ends. So if you come in this way or this way, there's no movement restriction at all. The side slopes of the wall are impassable though. So if you try to move in here, no problem. You try to move in here, no problem. This is impassable, that's impassable, and that's impassable. Since they are basically crevices in the earth, they don't block line of sight, but a unit that is in a wadi still blocks line of sight as normal. In World War II, the Germans actually used the tactic of flooding some of their fields, and the reason they did that was so that they could try to slow down the progress of the Allied forces that were invading. So there are some scenarios that are included in the terrain pack that bring forth that aspect of World War II combat. These high ground hexes that come with the terrain pack are basically to reveal dry areas on the battlefield that are in scenarios that use the flooded fields rules. Then marshes are also in the terrain pack, and movement here with marshes are basically infantry and armor that moves onto a marsh hex has to stop and cannot move further. The unit that leaves a marsh hex can only move onto an adjacent hex, and artillery unit may not enter a marsh hex because they'll basically get stuck. So the marshes are similar to the hedgerows of the base game, but again, they provide that little bit of an aesthetic change. As far as battle conditions are concerned, an infantry unit on a marsh hex does not have any battle restrictions. An armor unit may not battle the turn it moves onto or out of a marsh hex. If it makes a successful close combat roll, in other words, if they defeat a unit that is adjacent to them, or if they cause a unit to retreat from a hex while they are on a marsh hex, then the armor can take ground, but it cannot make an armor overrun. These are some of the other terrain hexes that come with the terrain pack. We have mountains and railroads. Mountains with movement only infantry are able to move up to a mountain from a hill hex and then down from a mountain to a hill hex. If you go from a regular board kind of terrain with not any kind of raised elevation onto a mountain, it's considered impassable. Armor and artillery cannot move onto mountain hexes at all. As far as battling is concerned, when an enemy unit is battling into a mountain hex, infantry and armor reduces the number of battle dice rolled by 2. Artillery battle dice, of course, are not reduced. Artillery are rarely ever reduced in this game. Railroad tracks are in the game now. Railroads were highly used by German forces to reallocate troops, reallocate supplies, equipment, all of that kind of stuff. So they really have a very solid place within this game. They don't provide any movement restrictions for infantry, but armor and artillery have to stop when moving onto a railroad track hex. As far as battling is concerned, there are no combat restrictions, and of course railroad tracks do not block line of sight either. This little hex here is a kind of like a depot or a train station, and usually this hex will be used if the scenario calls for some kind of troop movement on a railway, and it'll also give you what kind of troops will be able to be moved by the supply train or the freight train that is actually going to be included in the scenario. This actual hex here is treated like a town or a village. Because of the flooded fields new rule that comes in the terrain pack, they have also included roads, and these are roads that are raised above the fields that are dry and able to be traveled upon easily. If you start and end your movement on a road hex, you actually get to move +1 additional hex. With this new raised roads and the flooded fields expansion, infantry can now move 2. If they start and end on a road hex, they can move 2 and still battle. Armor can move 4 and then battle, so it makes armor really effective. Roads, of course, do not block line of sight unless they are on a hill. So these hilled roads, these will block line of sight. Lake hexes are also included in the terrain pack. Lake hexes are impassable terrain. Basically, you can't walk through the lake, you have to walk around. I know that's pretty self-explanatory, but that's the movement restriction that comes along with the lakes. Lake hexes do not block line of sight unless you are trying to target against 2 adjacent lake hexes. So if somebody is here and trying to target here, you're coming across 2 lake hexes, you can't do that. That's considered line of sight being blocked. But if you're here and trying to target here, no problem. The other river hexes are treated just like the river hexes that are found in the base game. Landmark tiles is what the scenario calls them. And most of them have no real effect. They are there for accomplishing a mission or a goal or something like that, and we'll get to that in just a few moments. But some of them do. For example, the church hex here. The church hex allows the unit that is within it to ignore a flag, and it is also treated as a town or village hex as normal. Same thing here with the fortress tile. Either side can claim it as a defensive position, which is different from the base game, because usually if you had sandbags or a pillbox or something to that effect, when the unit that started in it leaves, that defensive position is done away with. But that's not so with the Fortress. The Terrain Pack also introduces a new rule called Battlestar tokens. Some of the different things that Battlestar tokens can be used for are certain objectives, for example, blowing up a bridge or capturing enemy equipment, calling in airstrikes, freeing prisoners that you know are there, sabotaging an airfield, or sabotaging a dam, or just something where some kind of objective has to be met or accomplished in order for that to happen. When that objective or that mission is accomplished, the Battlestar is then taken as a medal, a victory medal, which goes toward your victory medals needed to win. So this is very similar to in the base game when you had a town or a village that had a medal, a victory medal in it, and then once the Allies or once the Germans took that town, they received that token as a victory medal. This is basically the same principle, but they play along with some of those special tiles, those landmark tiles that I just went over. Another new cool rule that the Terrain Pack introduces is the Big Gun tile. The Big Gun tile is given to a specific unit for that scenario, and at the beginning of the scenario they're given 3 targeting icons. First of all, the Big Gun can shoot 8 hexes away. If the Big Gun scores a hit on an enemy unit and the unit is not eliminated nor does it retreat, it can take one of these targeting icons and place it on that unit, and that token stays with the unit as long as the unit does not move. And then if that unit is eliminated on a future turn, it turns into a victory medal for the side that is using the Big Gun. The Terrain Pack also comes with minefield tokens. While the terrain hexes are being placed on the board, minefield tokens, scenario-specific number of minefield tokens, are turned to their face down side, where you can see the land and the sky and the little minefield sign. And they are shuffled randomly. Then they are put out on the board to denote hexes that have minefields in them. If an enemy unit is entering a minefield, you have to turn that minefield piece over to reveal its strength number. If the minefield is a decoy, in other words, if it's a 0 strength here, it's just removed from the board and nothing else happens. Otherwise, you would have to roll a number of battle dice equal to the minefield's strength. So you're rolling 1 battle die here, 2, 3, or 4 here, and then you are trying to score 1 hit for each die matching the unit's symbol or a grenade. So basically minefields are a nasty little addition to the game, but a real addition to the game because they were a problem, of course, in any wartime scenario. And finally, some of the other kinds of badges that come along with the Terrain Pack to indicate other kinds of special forces or special units are also included in the game. And here you have a group of examples that are shown here. First of all, you have British Special Forces, you have Polish troops that are available. You also have the SAS, or British Special Air Service. You also have German engineers, Italian engineers, British Royal Engineers, U.S. engineers. You have here Australian forces from New Zealand, 101st Airborne. Here you have Yugoslavian partisans. Here you have the Chinese Nationalist Forces. Over here, Gurkhas. Over here, you have the German Rosettes. So this was found on, the German aircraft, sides of their tanks, that type of thing. So they're just different markers, different badges that will help you remember any special abilities that the unit might carry with it. Again, adds more flavor to an already flavorful game. The terrain pack also gives a number of different obstacles and tokens that will help further the gameplay along. First of all, it comes with field bunkers, which are treated just as a regular bunker, but in addition to that, either side can claim it as a defensive position. There are also river fords, a movement for a unit. Whenever they enter a river hex, the unit enters the hex, must stop, and then no further movement on that turn. So a river ford allows you to actually move across a river. You still have to stop. It takes a while to go through there, but it actually allows you to cross where you would not normally be able to cross if it was just a regular river tile. A pontoon bridge, basically you can construct a pontoon bridge over a river. You would have to play an attack command card. Instead of ordering the 3 units in that section, you could place a pontoon bridge over a river. Railroad bridges, which are shown right here. A unit can enter a river hex when the hex has a railroad bridge. No infantry movement restrictions apply, but an armor unit must stop when it moves onto a railroad hex. There are no combat restrictions, and it does not block line of sight. The roadblocks, however, there's an infantry unit only can move into a hex that has a roadblock, and it is actually given a lot of protection by doing that. If a unit is on a roadblock hex, it can ignore the first flag rolled against it. So it's kind of like having hedgehogs from the original base set, and then also sandbags. It's just another defensible position. And then the train, locomotive, and the wagon. These are scenario-specific tiles that could be used whenever supply trains or artillery guns are being used. So I hope you can see that with all of that diversity now that you would have with the terrain pack, that I think your gaming experience all around with Memoir 44 would really be enriched, having to deal with those extra rules with the flooding the fields and high ground and mountains and all of those different kinds of things. I think your gaming experience would really be enriched if you have the terrain pack at the very least to go along with your base set. With that being said, though, I do think that there is a lot of other things that would be worth your while at least to look at, if not purchase. So let's get to some of those other things. For now, though, thanks for watching. See you on the flip side.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at DicetowerNetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.